went and got yourself a law degree. Congratulations, and welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Mronu, and I created this show to teach lawyers how to work in their gift and live their passions. Together with my guest, we provide the knowledge, insight, skills, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. I have a very special show for you guys today. In episode 5, I had the pleasure of speaking with Anusha, who is a young, dynamic consultant helping lawyers build careers that are in alignment with their personal brand. In that episode, she mentioned one of her role models was her aunt. Today, I'm lucky to have her aunt on the show. Krysia is a partner at a medical malpractice firm and has been listed in the Best Lawyers of America, Massachusetts Super Lawyer, and Top Women Attorneys. Not only is she a phenomenal attorney, but she's an engaged mother and happy. So I'm super excited to share her story with you today. All right, let's get to the interview. Welcome, Krysia. I am so excited to have you on the show and to welcome you.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
I really love to start the show with a brief description of your journey in the law and how you got to be where you are today.
Okay. It's a relatively simple journey in the sense that it was something I had contemplated coming out of college, but I came out of college with a bachelor's in science. I was a business major at Skidmore College, but for some reason had always thought about the law and whether it was an area I wanted to enter. But again, this was 25 years ago, so I think it was very different, and it was a very male-dominated profession. So rather than jumping into applications for law school, I came out of college and started interviewing to be just a law clerk, a full-time, I guess, paralegal or law clerk, however you would refer to it. And was fortunate enough to find an opportunity to work at a small boutique law firm that specialized in medical malpractice. And I knew nothing about medicine. I have no background in medicine, and I don't have any family members who are doctors or nurses, but it just seemed interesting. And so I took the position as a full-time law clerk for one of the partners here, who happened to be a woman, a female, who was married to one of the senior partners and was trying to raise her family and needed help. And so I was given the opportunity to get my hands into all kinds of legal stuff, if you will, as a law clerk, and exposed to trials and depositions. And make a long story short, it piqued my interest. So I applied to law school, was accepted, and continued to work 10 hours a week, and then 20 hours a week, et cetera, as each of the years went by through law school. And then they hired me as an associate, and then I became a partner. And this is the only place I've ever been. So I was able to work my way up. The partner who I worked for left, and so I kind of stepped in to that role and took over those cases, and this is where I've been ever since. So I've been here since 26 years. Been working at this firm.
That's really great, and I think that that's a really unique story. I don't know that many people stay with the same firm for that long anymore. What do you think made it possible for you to do that?
First and foremost, I think it was an interest in the law that I was practicing, and it wasn't necessarily a practice area that I chose because I was in law school thinking, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? And I took all these electives or, the various other avenues that people go down to try and figure out where they want to be. I guess it chose me in the sense that it was the first job opportunity that I had. But because it is such a challenge for me, learning medicine and the cases and the clients that we represent, these are complex, catastrophic medical negligence claims. So I'm learning everything from how to read fetal heart tracings on baby cases to looking at mammograms and CAT scans. It's something different every day. And so I think the challenge and the interest in what I was doing, and I'm also on the patient plaintiff side of things, so the reward that I get, not monetary, but the actual kind of the real good feeling that I get from helping people, especially the children. These are kids who can't take care of themselves, and so some of the work that we do and the monetary compensation that we achieve for them changes their lives forever. And so I think the combination of the interest in what I'm doing, the area of law, as well as the good feeling that I get when I actually help someone, has kept me here for 26 years and not interested in looking to recreate myself elsewhere.
That's, I think, so important. And I think it's hard for people to find that kind of rewarding practice. One of the things I really loved about your story, and kind of for the listeners who don't know, one of my previous guests is your niece.
Correct.
Yes. And so she's the one who introduced me to you, and she was like, I know a partner who's happy. And I was like, oh my God, that's like the holy grail.
Right. That exists. Yeah, that exists.
That's so great. And one of the things you put in you said to me beforehand was that you've managed to practice law and raise a family while being involved to the fullest in both regards. And I love that. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about how you've managed to do that.
Sure. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. It has been, certainly there have been challenging moments, and now I'm on the other side of it. So I can look back and see that and say that, because when you start as a young attorney and a young associate, obviously the goal is to make a mark and show what you can do and be the best, and you give the hours and the time and the commitment, and I guess that's the right time to be doing it, because there is no other responsibility if you don't yet have, a spouse and children that you're raising. But then, as would be with women, as all have that concern, when am I going to know? How am I going to know? It's still a male-dominated profession, maybe not as much so as it was in the past, certainly when I started. But I happen to practice in a group of all of my partners are men. I'm the only female. And so that has been something that I've had to negotiate and juggle for the last, since I became a partner in 2001. So for the last 15 years, I've had to juggle that. But it's doable as long as you, or me at the time, I had a very clear set of objectives in terms of what I wanted to do when I was here at my desk and what I knew I was capable of doing, but I couldn't fully do what I wanted to do here as an attorney practicing and as a partner if I couldn't also satisfy my need and desire to have a family. And I think having my family changed my perspective and how I approached some of the cases and the clients that I was representing. It gave me a whole new appreciation and perspective for the people that I was representing in a positive way. So I think it only made me a better lawyer, frankly. But I needed to have very frank conversations, and I needed to work with my partners about what I was capable of doing. I needed to make sacrifices, and I didn't think they were unreasonable. But again, I was dealing with people and partners with whom I'd been associated for a decade already. And so I had a strong relationship. It's not going to say that it wasn't a challenge, but I think for those young associates or women who are trying to achieve both, having realistic expectations of what you can do, because in order to be the best in both regards, you have to understand that you're not going to be able to give in the same way to the legal profession that maybe you did when you were a young associate proving yourself. You may not be able to try cases nights, if you're on trial, nights and weekends. So there has to be a realistic expectation, I think, on the attorney, the associate's part about what you're going to be able to achieve, and recognize you're going to have to make sacrifices, not from the family. I don't think it should be a sacrifice in raising your family. It's probably going to be a sacrifice on the legal side of things, but it doesn't mean you can't do it and be involved in the fullest way possible. I think realistic expectations is what's key for both sides, the employer and the employee, the lawyer or the partner and the partnership, however the organizational structure is. And rather than assuming, or I don't know what the proper word is, but expecting that everybody is just going to go along with a plan to leave and be out on maternity or to drop to part-time or whatever the organizational change may be, the frank and open discussions about how you think you're going to be able to achieve it is critical. At least it was for me. And that's how I was able to manage my way into a position where I can pretty successful and good at what I do here and go home at night and still do homework with my kids and be there on the weekends, which for me was the only way I was going to be a good lawyer, is if I didn't have the guilt of not being with my kids when I wasn't at work.
what you're saying resonates so much with me, and I really am. It's nice to hear somebody say those things because we're kind of on the other side of it. How old are your kids, by the way?
My son is 14 and my daughter is just turning 10.
Okay, so lots of homework time.
Yes, right, and lots of teenage angst right now.
Yes, you're kind of in the middle of it, I think. My kids are really little, so
okay,
just on the
you haven't got there yet.
The front end. My son's just starting to get to the point where he can tell lies. I mean, he's 3.
Oh, great!
So it's kind of a fun time to talk him through make believe.
Sure.
I would love to go back to what you were saying about kind of setting boundaries and really setting goals for yourself and kind of trying to build a career around those goals. When do you think is the right time for an associate to start having these conversations, and who should they be having them with?
So again, if it's a firm firm or corporation, whatever the arrangement may be, that they are truly happy with or could see themselves, long term, this is the place they want to continue their career with, then I don't think they have to sit down and say, hey, in 5 years, I'm going to want to start to plan a family. But it has to do with the open and honest communication with the partners or the individuals to whom they report or with whom they're going to be continuing down their career path with. Again, for me, it's a small firm. It's a boutique firm. I don't have to deal with layers of management or managing partners and then juniors and senior partners, etc. I have a core group of my 6 partners that I deal with, so that the conversation is had or was had back then with, listen, guys, I'm not going to try cases anymore because I can't. I can't do both, and I won't be a good trial lawyer. I won't be a good mom. I can't do both, but this is what I can do, and I can do this well, and I can be the managing partner in the office well, and I can manage the cases day to day well, and I can still go to court and try, and do the hearings and take the depositions, etc. I just need my nights and weekends, and I was very upfront about it, and it wasn't received necessarily on the first conversation, but with time and with showing what I could do here, they came around to recognizing, you know what, you have value in that role and you fill a role that we can't fill, because everybody's personalities are different too. So when to start that conversation, I guess, would be probably would different from individual to individual, but identifying that is the place they want to be long term and that they may want to raise a family and then come back in a different role or even in the same role, but having that conversation with the people who are going to be affected by it is what's important.
I think that the really important thing from what you said and what I'm hearing is that it's really also crucial to know what your value is and possible solutions. So not just go in there and tell them this is your plan and wait for them to offer you something.
Right, and expect that they're going to say, okay, or we've been waiting for you to say that. You still have to work hard and you still have to be a contributing force and factor if you want to maintain or you want to be part of the long-term fabric of whatever firm or organization you're with. You can't just expect that other people are going to pick up the slack for you. And, I don't know if that's my generation or not, but I really believe that you still have to recognize that you may want to change the job description, if you will, or the way in which it's always been done. And you have to recognize that may not be what some of the other men, women, partners, associates want or expect or are used to, and you're going to have to maybe massage it a little bit, and you have to, like you said, offer solutions, and there may be a little bit of, let me show you what I mean. Let me show you how I can be of value. Let me show you what I can do. I don't have to try cases to be, quote unquote, a partner or a litigation partner here. I can do a lot of stuff, outside of a courtroom or outside of the trial domain. I'm using that as the example for me because that's what it was. But I think that any of these particular areas of law, it's applicable to, and you can't just have an expectation that everybody will go along with it.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I think part of that is also who needs to go along with it. Do you have buy-in from the partners that you work with and who are doing the kind of work you want to be doing, and are you going to be able to find enough support to get it across the finish line? Because maybe it doesn't need to go over well with everybody. Because maybe
Correct.
the people you're working with can handle that arrangement, and maybe people are going to talk about it, and it doesn't matter necessarily if the people you aren't working with don't.
Right. No, absolutely. And you may not please everybody, but again, depending on the hierarchy, you've got to address the concerns of the people that matter, if you will, in terms of partner, or if you're an associate and this is your job on the line, so you may have to prove what you're saying is legitimate and it can work. Because again, at least for me, 14 years ago when I had my son, one of the senior partners, that wasn't comfortable. In other words, it's not the way it's been. It's not the way, there hadn't been women who had gone out and had families and come back. Everybody seemed to go. And so I needed to massage that a little bit, that it can work. Everybody just have some faith. Yep. We can do this. It's a changing times, and we can do this. We can make this work.
Oh, I love that. That's a great transition. I would love to know what your thoughts are on how the practice is changing and how the path to partnership, particularly for women, is changing.
Right. So, I think a lot of the big firm changes that we've seen, again, I've got exposure to my small boutique practice, so I don't necessarily know if this is the norm or not. I definitely have seen more women in the courthouse, in the courtroom, coming to depositions. There are certainly far more women in the law, and at least practicing in my area, than there were 25 years ago, which is a great thing. So more women are still going into law school and graduating and coming out. And I remember even talking to my niece about it, however many years ago, are you sure this is what you want to do? Because it's not easy coming out of law school and finding a job and finding a happy place. So I'm happy to see that it's more, the equality is there in terms of women and men who are practicing. I don't know that gap in men and women and partners has narrowed quite as much, at least when I look around. Again, I practice in a relatively narrow niche of medical malpractice law, but I do think that because there are so many more women, there has to be an evolution on the path to partnership and raising a family, that firms have had to kind of embrace the fact that if you've got good employees, good female attorneys, you need to embrace this and work with them on either the path to partnership or raising a family, or both. It's a trend. It has to happen because there's so many more women now who are filling those roles. Maybe not partners, but certainly as female attorneys.
Yeah, and I think the numbers would support everything that you're saying about the number of women who are making it to partnership. And I would also add that I think more and more young men are wanting the opportunities to have, take their full paternity leave and be there with their wives when they have kids, and, actually make it to soccer games when their kids have them, and those types of things. So it's not just a woman's issue. It's kind of really I don't want to make it generational, and maybe it is, but it feels like a young person's issue, and I hear it from both men and women.
You do, yeah. So I don't hear it or see it from the male side of the equation, because the men here, it just doesn't apply to them, I guess. So I don't really necessarily see that, but I would believe it for sure. I would think that's probably true.
Yeah, and I think that in some ways the firms are going to have to distinguish themselves on those points as time goes on, because some firms are just going to embrace it more naturally than others.
Yep.
And for some men, it doesn't apply. They're totally fine with the traditional route, and their wives are fine with it, and that's, if everybody's happy, I'm fine with it. And so maybe some firms will be able to go on that way, and then other firms can distinguish themselves in this way. And I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's true. No, I think it's true. And I think to a certain extent, some of these firms, they're going to have to make the transition, or make it a little bit of a gentler transition for folks in terms of paternity and maternity, etc.
Yeah, and it's going to always be hard for women to make it to partnership without paternity.
Yeah.
Because if guys aren't doing it, then it's going to always be harder for women to do it. And
it is. And, I hate to say it's a double standard, but it's not even just the time to be home with a newborn. It's doctor's appointments and the first day of school and teacher conferences. And it never ends. And that's a good thing. But to be able to put yourself or navigate yourself into a position that you can make all of that work, again, is ideal, but I also think it has a lot to do with being open and honest and understanding what you want and what you can provide the firm and what the firm needs, etc., so that no one feels that they're being taken advantage of on either side. You don't want to be resentful that you're here doing something when you can't be with your family, and there's always going to be those examples, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't have to say no to a particular play or game because you have to do something for work. You have to be reasonable on both fronts.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I like to ask everybody a couple of questions at the end of my show, and
Sure.
The first one I'd like to ask you is, what do you believe is the key to living a life you love?
Well, first of all, if you're working, as we are, if you don't like and love coming to work every day, if this is where you're spending 8 hours or 9 hours of your day. I don't love my commute, but I do like and I do love what I do when I get here. If I didn't, then I think you need to re-examine who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it, and find something you love. I am truly very proud of the fact that I was able to find an area of law that I love practicing in, and that I'm still here 26 years later, and that I still can go home and I have a healthy family, like, I hate to use it, but that whole work-life balance that makes me love my time at home, and I truly enjoy coming into work every day and doing what I'm doing. I'm not saying there aren't ups and downs. There always are, obviously. But the key to living a life you love, if that's what you're saying, is loving where you are. Because if you don't, then I would think it would be miserable every day getting up and wondering why you're getting in the car or getting on the train and going back to the same place that you don't like the people you're with and you don't like what you're doing.
That's so good. I think it's so simple. But it feels very profound because so many people do it. You know, so many people go to this place that they hate and they don't know how to get out of it, and the answer is get out of it.
I'm sure it wouldn't take you more than 5 seconds to think of a handful of people that you know personally.
Of course, absolutely.
Who dislike where they are every day of every week. You know, dislike their job.
Yep, absolutely.
Or their spouse or something. There's some aspect of their life that is completely they're completely unhappy with.
Yes.
So
I think that's great advice. So the next thing I'd like to know is, are there any tools or resources that you recommend for young lawyers who are trying to figure out how to set their own goals and kind of build this life that they love?
Yeah, what I did, and I think what a lot of the young associates here is the networking, not so much books or conferences type thing, but the bar association type events. And again, not just every bar association, but the Women's Bar or the Young Lawyers Association or some of the bigger ones that have good speakers or have good events or have good networking events periodically. We always encourage the young associates here to get out because they're the next generation. They're going to, get out and meet each other, talk to each other, get ideas from each other, get their names out there. Again, we're a litigation firm, so whenever there are events that have judges or the judiciary that attend, we always go so that they can get their faces and see judges, and we can introduce them to some of the judges that we've known over the years from trying cases and being in front of them, so that they know there are other like-minded folks out there and they can meet other people. I think that's hugely helpful. I was never a big website or anything like that, but we speak at MCLE or continuing legal education, and here in Massachusetts it's called MCLE. We speak at seminars there, and there are always people in attendance of various ages, but for the young or newer associates, I think some of the bar association events are far more beneficial because they can meet and talk and interact as opposed to just listening.
Absolutely. And I think those in real life, connections are so important. And sometimes the networking can feel a little forced. So I always advise people to really pick topics and groups that resonate with them and not things they think they should be going to.
Sure.
And sometimes I go to stuff that's not within my practice group. It's not work I do at all, but it's just there's stuff I'm interested in. And I just meet interesting people. And I can genuinely say to them, what do you do? I would love to know more about it because it's true.
Yeah, right.
And so
because there's so much more out there than whatever your narrow niche may be. Yeah. At least that's what I find. I look at what some other people do and some friends who I've stayed in touch with from law school, and I'm in awe at what they can accomplish because I could never do that. But because for 25 years I've only done this. So I'm always fascinated at what other people can accomplish.
Exactly. So the very last question I'd like to ask is, what do you believe separates those lawyers who end up finding happiness from those who don't?
Realistic expectations. I really do. I think sometimes people who go into the practice of law, they go in with an expectation or a stereotype in their mind, or they're not really sure why they went to law school. They just went to law school because they needed a profession or a career, or because their mom or dad or someone did it. And I'm not sure that they really know why they did it or what they're going to do when they come out. And so I think the lawyers who find happiness, I guess I can speak for myself, is because I found something that I was interested in. I'm still challenged every day. As I sit here trying to figure out how to find a tumor in a pancreas on an imaging study, I'm still challenged every day. But being honest with yourself and having realistic expectations about what the law can do for you and what you can do within the profession, as opposed to kind of the stereotypes or money or fame or whatever it is that, they may not have really known why they went into this profession in the first place.
I love that advice, and I think it's great advice. And even if you found yourself in law school for the wrong reasons, I think you can always kind of reflect and decide, from here on, how can law serve me before you kind of leave? Because I think some people are like, I went in it for the wrong reason, so no, I'm just going to
jump ship,
absolutely,
or they stay in a job that they're miserable in.
Exactly.
I guess that's where my niece, is tapped into a vein that she realizes that maybe people went into the law for one reason or didn't know why they did it, and now they are really not happy with where they are, and they need to try and navigate to find something that will make them happy. Because, like we said, you're going to be doing it for 8 or 10 hours a day every day. So she's probably hit that nerve with a lot of people.
Yep. No, I immediately, when I saw her on LinkedIn, her little bio said committed to happy lawyers. And so I knew I could connect it right away. I was like, oh my gosh, we have the same commitment.
That's right. You're striving for the same goal.
Yes. It's so great to meet people who are like-minded. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this today and for connecting with me and sharing your story with my audience. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we end the conversation?
No, I think just the overriding theme that you said is that I think even if you went into the law for one reason and it didn't pan out or you didn't find the happiness there, don't jump ship, because if you've made it through the 3 years of law school, it's something that they can never take away from you and you can always use, and there's something positive that will come from it and will create the happy lawyer, that you want to find. So I do believe that can be found and not to jump ship because it's maybe not readily apparent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that message, and thank you for sharing it with my audience. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at okema, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!